Hello, this is a special day for the Canadas and those that are gathered with us at the reunion at the Pilgrim Baptist Church Fellowship Hall in Gainesville, Georgia. My name is Mike Canada, and I'm a son of Harmon and Moselle Canada, and grandson of Steve and Etta Canada. I'm going to say a few words about some things that I have learned, and by no means can do it here in a few minutes, but I just want to touch on the highlights of some of the things that I'm sure that some of us older people and the younger ones would be interested in hearing about, some of their heritage and where they came from and where they lived, maybe a few things of what happened in their life. We began, as we're told, that in the country of Ireland, that a man, we believe, whose name was Harmon Cumming Canada, or maybe Old Canada, or something close to it, as he boarded a ship and came to America, to Charleston, South Carolina. Now, we've tried to find and search diligently to try to find a good bit about him before that we found out of his family, some of his family who lived on up into South Carolina and Georgia. But we understand that as a young fellow he came to Charleston, and there our journey we cannot pick up about him, but we do know that as he journeyed on, that somewhere in South Carolina that he passed from this life. And as we kept searching and searching, and some before me and others had wrote down lots of notes about Danielsville and things, but I guess it just so happened that Margaret Ann got us interested in this, and of course some other people, my son, and of course Adrian and others has helped in this to find some of this information, and we certainly appreciate that. But we find that somewhere in South Carolina, the one that came from Ireland, who started all of this, passed away and was somewhere in South Carolina buried. We pick up our family, the journey of our family in Oglethorpe County in the 50s, somewhere around 1850, and in that vicinity, a place called Oglethorpe County near Athens, Georgia, and then on to Danielsville, where his son and family lived. This would have really been a joy to visit in the communities to where that they lived, and of course there's a graveyard where some of our relatives live there, of grandfather Steve's daddy, of a cemetery there that Brother George and myself have been there, and Adrian's been there, took some pictures. And of course there was a large family of them, we understand, and somehow they moved around a little bit here and there, and we won't go into that how far it was, but in 1872 over at Jones Chapel over on US 29 between Danielsville and Royston, Georgia, we find in 1872 that Grandpa's daddy, Harmon, he was on a committee of the Jones Chapel Methodist Church to investigate with the other committee members some charges of some people that had a little problem there. They needed to be reprimanded and sorted out. So we can see that he involved himself pretty well in things wherever he went, as our grandfather did the same thing. And so in 1876 we find that they were still members of Jones Chapel Methodist Church. And that's pretty well close to over in Franklin County toward Royston, Georgia. Quite a distance if you had to walk or ride a mule or have a truck, not a truck but a wagon, to get that far. But then we find that our story picks up in a place called Rabun County. And of course the census gives us the family members. And for a long time, I believe some had tried to find out where they lived in Rabun County, but we searched and had some people to help us, and we found out that just beyond Tallulah Gorge, top of the hill about 3 miles to the right, and go about 3 miles, you'll find another church called Wolf Fork. And there is a Wolf Fork Creek. Brother George has been there with me, and we got some rocks out of that creek and things to remember. And so we began to inquire in the community about the Canadas. We'd heard that they had a farm or fields or something and raised sheep. That's been told us down through the years. And so we began to just stop on the side of the road and ask people. And so we ran upon this some young people, a man and his wife, probably in the 30s. And we said, could you tell us where the Canada fields are? They said, well, you just go down the road right here and go out this road. You'll come across a little creek out here, and that's where it begins at. So we found out where these where this big farm was that our forefathers owned, grandfather's mother and his daddy, and he also owned it, about 540 acres. Didn't cost them too much, about $50 an acre. Good bargain today, wouldn't it be? And so we asked along several people at different times and visited with them, and then a deacon of the church down there, and Brother George, we got to sit in a bench that came out of the original church. And the church is still there, but it's been remodeled, but the original church is still just like it was when our forefather, our grandfather and his daddy went to church there. Or not his daddy, but Steve's daddy. And we talked with a lot of people, and they readily remembered the Canada fields, that they really had a big spread there. But sometime around 1903 or 4, things began to change, and Grandpa's mother moved down to New Holland and started a boarding house, and Grandpa soon followed and went to work at Packlet Mills, and there starts our family to be coming into view, and other families and people connected, and always known as number 1 Branch Street. I remember as a young boy how we walked the railroad from Bradford Street out there on those days when we had those great get-togethers. I was more interested in playing than anything else, but I still remember the precious memories and the good times. And then there's our grandmother. My grandfather was up on Myrtle Street one time, and he saw this beautiful girl, and somehow he took a great liking to him, and she took a great liking to him. They got together, and a big family originated out of that, where we came from, which we're thankful. We sometime shed a few tears when we look back and see what happened in their lives, the things and the precious memories that they left us. But he fell in love, and they married, and the rest of the story is told of their offspring, which we gather together and reminisce, go over a lot of things, and the real precious memories that flood our soul. And as a grandson of Steve and Etta, as our grandparents, their character still lives in our hearts, and especially in mine, for it instilled a foundation to build on spiritually. As my dad Harmon used to say, I'm happy to be a son of old man Steve. I also am happy to be a grandson of old man Steve. My grandmother was an inspiration as a young boy, but more so as I look back to see the character it took to live, as our grandmother and grandfather demonstrated before us in hard times. Really, what a real Christian really was. Those things were passed down to us and more than just memories. that took roots and still lives in us. Just remember, we, as some of you were once young, time waits for no one. But time cannot take the character of what was passed down to us. And so you cherish the memories of the past that still lives. To all of you, may God hold you in the hollow of his hand, and may the wind always be at your back. God bless you.
To say a few words, so I thought I'd give you a rundown for the sake of the young ones that coming up and they're getting of age and wanting to know a little bit about the history of the family. But I'm going to tell you a few things about my dad and mother, and then we'll tell you all of the 12 children here. But I'll just tell you when they was born, not when they died. And I hate to say it, but I never would have thought it happened like this, but I'm the only one that's living now. I believe Vic been dead about a year, and he was 2 years younger than I was. And he's was the last. Well, my daddy, Stephen Canada, was born in June the 18th, 1876, and he married Laura Etta Cook, and he was 17 years older than her at that time, and she was born June the 9th, 1893, and Harmon, the oldest one, the firstborn, Harmon Cumming Canada, was born May the 21st, 1909. Silas Mullen Canada was born March the 13th, 1911. Cosetta Cotain Canada was born October the 6th, 1913, which October 6th today. Only thing it's 2007, but it just so happened it is October the 6th now when I'm making this tape. Well, Fanny Bell Canada was born May the 1st, 1915. Leavenell Canada was born September the 1st, 1918. I don't know if I said 1918 about that, but 1915 she was born. Leavenell was born in 1918. Andrew Jackson Canada was born November the 21st, 1919. William Edward Canada was born December the 24th, 1922. George David Canada was born in October the 21st, 1925. Riley Victor Canada was born in December the 26th, 1927. Stephen Canada Jr., the only one that was stillborn, he was born in December the 29th, 1930. Laura Gwendolyn Canada was born in January the 21st, 1932, and Mac Eugene Canada was born in May the 3rd, 1935. So Harmon Canada was the oldest, and Mac Eugene was the youngest, and Laura Gwendolyn was the youngest daughter, and Cosetta Cotain Canada was the oldest daughter and the third child. Well, that goes with that. I'd say a few things about my dad. He was in 3 wars, and he volunteered for every one of them. And speak of well, he was in the Spanish-American War. He was in the Philippine Islands War, and he was in World War I. And in the Philippine Islands, he said that they had some little headhunters, they call them, short people, pygmies. And the more skulls they get, the higher they get to be king. So they was, my dad said that they was 12 soldiers per tent over there, and said that those headhunters, he woke up way up in the night one night, and they already cut 10 of the 12's heads off. And him and one more soldier was the only ones there, and he didn't say what happened, but I can imagine he cleared them out with his band-aid or something. But anyhow, talking about predestination, you might not believe in that, but you see, the Bible said that God foreknew us, he saw us before the world was, before he ever made the world. And see, in that case, and if he saw me here, there wasn't no way that my dad could have got killed. I used to think that if my dad got killed in the war, I could have come some other way, but not so, because when God seen us before the world was, I'd have to come the way that he's seen me. So you might not believe in predestination, but when you read something like that or hear something like that, it shows predestination. But I done read off all of the children's name, and they were 12, but just one was stillborn. But I believe it'll be there. But anyhow, I just thought that I would give you a little bit of what the family history, the immediate family. Now, we don't go back any farther than Steve and Etta Canada. That's when we start. But now my dad had some brothers and sisters, but we knew that one we called Aunt Lou Ivy, married Ivy, Stanton Ivy, and they lived in Atlanta when I was a boy. I remember them. And then I remember Uncle Charlie Canada that lived in Honey Pass, South Carolina. He had two boys, the oldest Charles and the youngest was Roy. And Charles died around when he's in his late 40s or around 50. But Roy's still living in Honey Pass. But and then Aunt Lou is the only sister I've ever known of him, because I remember when I was a boy. But anyhow, my dad was uneducated. He lived up in Raven County, and he didn't get a chance for schooling or nothing like that. And my mother learned him to read and write when they got married, although my mother just had a 3rd grade education. But my dad, when he died, sent her to Richard B. Russell. I know some young people may have never heard of him, but he was one of the greatest. He was number 4 man in the government from the president at one time, and he and my dad was either 3rd or 4th cousins. And when my dad died, we got a telegram from Senator Richard B. Russell saying, "It saddened me, my heart, to hear the passing of my friend Steve." And he told about in I think 1929 when he run for governor of Georgia, and my dad, he introduced him up on the courthouse steps in Gainesville, introduced him to speak. And my dad, he had a voice, it carries what I call. He could be just talking like me and you could hear him out in the street, but he wouldn't be hollering or yelling or nothing, he'd just be talking naturally. But he has been heard over a mile, and it was proof, because when I was a boy, the old ballpark for New Holland was just across the railroad track from where we lived on number 1 Branch Street. Well, they moved the ballpark down on the other end of the mill, east of the lake. This was west of the lake, but this other was the east of the lake, and they built a stadium with a cover over it and everything down there. But they used to get over on the old ballpark and have what they call protracted meeting. Back then they didn't call it revival, it was just something about a protracted meeting, and they string up electric lights. And one time he was testifying over there, and Fate Brusher, that lived on the other side of the mill at the end of the edge of Rabbit Town, which is a mile or more, told my dad what he said the next day. Now they didn't have no loudspeakers, didn't have no mics or nothing, but he was just talking, and it looked like it could be a little over a mile, but it is a good mile that he has been heard. But I understand this this brother that preached in the days of Wesley, and I can't think of his name. I didn't know it very good, but they said he has been heard 3 miles. But back then there wasn't no traffic nor things make noise. And by the way, when this fellow heard my daddy, it was between on the other side of the mill, and the mill is 5-story, and it's got all kind of machinery in it, and you can hear it outside. But anyhow, I forgot to time myself, but I didn't want to take too long. And may the Lord bless you.